What's up, guys? Welcome to the Pregame Stretch, a new video series brought to you by the Two Homers and a Realist podcast. Going to be covering the OU Auburn game coming up, a few things that we want to see, maybe some things that we don't want to see, some score predictions, and then maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get some locks of the week. All right, well, let's stretch it out. Let's dive right in. So OU meets Auburn for the third time ever. I don't know why, in my head, I feel like it would be a team that OU has played more than 2 times before Saturday. Sooners are victorious in both of the other 2 games. They played in the 1972 Sugar Bowl and were victorious 40-22. And then much more recently with Mr. Mayfield and Mr. Westbrook and crew in the 2017 Sugar Bowl, and were victorious there as well, 35-19. So 2-0 for the Sooners, looking to go 3-0 this weekend. I think the circumstances are much different for both of these teams in this matchup. Considering those teams were in the Sugar Bowl, assuming they had pretty solid records. I know 2016 both teams had great records, but it's been a rough couple weeks for both the Sooners and the Tigers, I think. So Auburn looking at 2-2, backs against the wall. They're scoring points against teams that aren't very good, and they're not scoring points against teams that are okay, I guess. Only 14 points scored in both the California and the Arkansas games in both of those losses. So it's been a weird time for them. And they've gone through some quarterback controversy just as well as OU. I think they're switching back to their starter this week going into the OU game. So they're turning the ball over a lot, and I don't know if that bodes very well considering that OU leads the nation in turnovers currently. But that being said, Tiger against the wall, Tiger backed into a corner, they're going to come out swinging, they're going to come out fighting. I think they're going to give OU a pretty good run for their money, especially in that stadium, that environment. They're going to be hyped up, they're going to be ready to go, so Sooners are going to have to bring it nonetheless. Couple things on OU, just some developing storylines, or storylines that are obviously developed and have progressed, have taken many shapes, many forms, and are on fire on the social media. First one, covered it in the podcast, obviously. It's huge news across the nation. Michael Hawkins getting the start over Jackson Arnold this week. We talked about it on the podcast. I talked about it in the 5th quarter earlier this week, but I think Hawkins deserves the chance that he's getting. I think Brent is making a difficult decision, and I think he's making the correct one. I wouldn't have been shocked, like I've said, if Jackson would have been out there this week. But after what Hawkins did in 2 quarters, again, I know it's only 2 quarters, but it's against Tennessee, one of the higher rated defenses in the country. What he did in 2 quarters has kind of convinced me that we at least need to give this kid a shot. He's making decisions that need to be made. He's making plays with his feet out of the pocket where he needs to. And he's just walking around or playing with the confidence and the swagger that I think the position demands, especially in the SEC, but definitely at the University of Oklahoma as well. So, like Brent said in his press conference, not the end of the line for Jackson by any means. Wouldn't shock me at all if we see a really shaky first quarter plus from Michael Hawkins, and he doesn't have it, and he's doing kind of what Jackson Arnold was doing before, if the leash is short and we see Jackson in there at some point this week. Now, that in mind, I hope that doesn't happen. I'm so sick of quarterback controversy. I want to find the guy, and I want to run with it. And I think everyone knows if it's Michael Hawkins, and I think it really could be, we're going to see some freshman mistakes at some point. One thing that I think Sooner Nation has been extremely spoiled with is having good backup quarterbacks. And it's been a great run of 10 years almost with an elite quarterback, whether it be the guy who started the season or the guy who finished the season. But I think if it is Michael Hawkins and it looks like he's the guy, Sooner Nation needs to get fully behind him. And then when he makes a mistake, we don't need to be calling for Jackson Arnold. I think that's where confidence gets shaken as a player, and I think fans need to understand that there are going to be some growing pains with this transition if Michael does keep the job. So if it is him, I fully back him, fully support him. I think this week's going to be a really good indicator if it is or not Michael Hawkins going forward, especially as we move into Texas in a couple weeks. But we'll see. I'm excited to see him on Saturday. Next big story, probably the one that has shaken us up as a fan base and even just nationally getting recognition for how banged up we are. Let's go ahead and take a look at the injury report that has come out. And no, those aren't sirens in or out your window or out your door. Those are ambulance sirens to go pick up the next hurt OU player. No, but seriously, it is mind-boggling to look at this injury report. To have your top 5 wide receivers out and a freshman quarterback starting his first game this weekend, it's crazy. It's insane. So we'll see. I do think the positive here, if you can take any sort of silver lining with it, is 2 things. First thing is Michael Hawkins has got a ton of reps with the guys that are going to be playing, considering he was running with the 2s. A lot of these guys are running with the 2s, so there should be some chemistry there. I think we'll be able to see that, if it is or isn't. But I would assume, take what he and Jacques Petaway did last week as an example. Those 2 were clicking. They were on the same page outside of one missed 4th down, but regardless, they look like they had some reps together in the past. So I'm hoping we see that not only with Petaway, but across the board in other receivers as well. Other silver lining is it looks like we actually might be getting a semblance of the offensive line we thought we were going to have going into the season back together. Hoping we see Troy Everett this week. Hickman's back. You have Sexton at left tackle finally, hopefully. So I'm not saying that everything's going to be fixed with that. Obviously, a ton of work to be done on the offensive line still. But just be serviceable. Just be serviceable, please. So anyways, that's the injury report for you. It is a very, very touchy subject right now for understandable reasons. But you don't have a choice. You got to power through it. Did want to take a look at Auburn real quick, just kind of how they look offensively and defensively from a statistical standpoint. Auburn's given up 340 yards per game, 220 in the air, almost 120 on the ground. They've only forced 4 turnovers on the season, tied for 74th in the nation actually. Only averaging 2 sacks per game, so maybe that bodes well for the lacking offensive line. That being said, we have made teams like Temple and Tulane and Houston's defensive front look good, so I'm a little worried about what we're going to do against Auburn. But maybe there's some hope. And then lastly, they're giving up about 17 points per game right now. So that's how they're looking on the defensive side of the ball. Let's take a look at the offense. 36.5 points per game. And again, most of those points scored in 2 games against Alabama, A&M, and New Mexico. 462 yards per game, 284 through the air, 178 on the ground. And again, like I said, they're scoring 73 against Alabama A&M, 45 against New Mexico, and then 14 apiece against California and Arkansas. So I don't know. I think it's a team that has a lot to prove. They're turning the ball over a lot, like I mentioned earlier. I think it's a good matchup for the Sooners defensively. Again, this is just going to be what can the Sooners do on offense to move the ball against what kind of looks like a mediocre defense at this point. What can we do to move the ball? Go score points. Just score points. Take advantage of turnovers when you're getting them. Take advantage of plus territory when you're getting it. So all of those things put together, if they're working, if they're clicking, should result in a win, I would think. All right, that being said, let us get into the fun stuff. Let's get into this week's locks.
The realest deal, locks of the week.
All right, so if you listen to the midweek pod, this is nothing new for you, but thought I'd cover it here for our YouTube viewers as well. Some interesting picks. We'll start off with Steve, who says he's a homer, but I see a weird pick here. He's got Texas. Excuse me, Texas giving 38.5 to Mississippi State. Unfortunately, I like the pick. Mississippi State is not good. Jeff Lebby has not figured it out down there yet. I think he's far from figuring it out. Texas is rolling. I hate having to agree with him, but I think for this purpose, it's a good pick. Next, he's got Memphis giving 24.5 against Middle Tennessee State. I think Memphis dropped one last week against Navy, if I remember correctly, after the big win against Florida State, quote-unquote big win against Florida State. So they're trying to bounce back against what I would assume is not a great Middle Tennessee State team. And he's right back on the homer team. So he had on the homer train. He had the Texas pick. Now he's getting back in the boat. He's got OU giving 2.5 to Auburn. Now, mind you, that line has shifted a little bit since the injury reports have come out. However, I still think it's a great pick. I think I think it's a lock. I think it's great. Moving on to Lucas. Lucas has Texas A&M giving 4 to Arkansas. Purpose there, I think Texas A&M has dominated that series. I don't think it's a neutral site game. Arkansas has looked good, but they still have not seemed to figure it out against Texas A&M. So he's got the Aggies there. He's got UCLA getting 25.5 against Oregon. Oregon, another team that I think nationally, not too sure what they are just yet. But UCLA, I don't know, they're not great. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. Last pick for Lucas, he's got SMU giving 6.5 against the mighty Seminoles of Florida State. Man, it's bad in Tallahassee right now. They've got a hurricane rolling through. Their team is 1-3, and I think they're about to be 1-4. I like the pick, Lucas. Good pick against with SMU against Florida State. Next, we'll go to the ringer of the group. I think Jay's 10-2 on the season for locks, so he is rolling. He is annoyingly nervous that his locks aren't going to hit this week, which only annoys me because I'm not doing nearly as well as him. But guess what? One of his locks played last night, and they already hit. Army covers the 12.5 against Temple. So Jay's 1-0 already, and it's not even Saturday yet. He's got Iowa State giving 13.5 against Houston. Another good pick in my opinion. Houston's not much. I think Iowa State's defense is going to handle them with ease. And then he's also on the homer boat. He's got OU 2.5, giving 2.5 against Auburn. So welcome to the club, Jay. Join Steve up there. I like the OU pick. We'll go to me next. I've got Ole Miss giving 17.5 against Kentucky. Ole Miss is rolling. That offense, I'm terrified to go to Oxford at this point. So we'll see. I think 17.5 should be an easy cover for them. I've got Bama getting 1.5 at home against Georgia. I think the last time Jay said that Bama was a dog at home was like 2009. Someone can fact check that if we're wrong. Sorry, but regardless, I think it's been a really long time. Bama looks good. I don't know about Georgia after the Kentucky game. We'll see how it shakes out, but I've got Bama winning at home. And then I'm jumping in the boat with Steve and Jay. I've got OU giving 2.5 against Auburn again. I think it's. I'm excited for it. I'm grasping onto the optimism, the homerism here. Lastly, we'll go with our listener, Mike, for the week. He's got Miami, Florida, giving 18.5 against Virginia Tech. Miami's got things going in the good direction down there, so we'll see how that works out. Illinois, getting 17.5 against Penn State. Also like that pick. Illinois had a really good win against Nebraska. Penn State's Penn State. I think they're always overrated, so we'll see. But I like the pick there for Illinois. And then he's got an opposite of Lucas. He's got Oregon giving 24.5 against UCLA. So we'll see. I hope for the group's sake, Lucas can win that one, but it would not shock me at all if Oregon covers that spread. All right, so that's the locks for you. Lastly, we're going to cover scores. Some score predictions across the four of us. First, we've got Steve. He's got the Sooners winning 31-20. I like it. Definitely a cover. We've got Lucas, OU 24, Auburn 17. Another cover, if I'm not mistaken. Jay also with 24-17. And I've got me, Connor, 34-24 for OU. So all of us got us covering the spread. I have us giving up a little bit more on defense. I don't think our defense should give up 24 points, but it is our first road games. Things can get a little slippery if it starts going downhill a little bit, some big plays here and there. I hope that this just further confirms that we have an elite defense and we can hold them to a nominal amount of points. But we'll see. Lots of exciting stuff. Lots of nerve-wracking stuff too, though. It's a weird time in the program. I'm antsy. It's all I think about, and it consumes me. So I'm hoping we can get back on the right track this week, going into the bye week. Have a huge game against Texas in 2 weeks, but got to take care of those Auburn Tigers first. Until next time, Boomer. See you.